Hello, my friends. I know it's been a while since I've made a video. I do apologize for that. I've just been busy with other things, and when I don't have a good idea for a video, I don't try to force it, so I've just been doing other things. One thing that I've been up to is genealogical research, researching the genealogy of European royalty, because personally I believe, and I'm not going to get too much into this in this video is about something else, but I think that there really wasn't ever a true fall of the Roman Empire or of the Near Eastern empires. I think that the fall of the Roman Empire and then the subsequent Christianization of Europe was a rebranding almost. It was a decision to restructure the power structures of the time and to sort of go in a different direction, try a different method of conquering and creating a world empire, which I think we're living under the same oligarchy that has existed for thousands of years. And that's a pretty bold claim. I'm not going to be able to support it or prove it. I will link the genealogies that I've been researching in the description, because I've been trying to go through and double check and confirm each generation, and that's been interesting. So these papers basically claim that the European royalty descends from as far back as Egyptian pharaohs, going even as far back as the Middle Kingdom, 2000 BC, which, if that is true and there's a direct descent and power has been preserved and there's been a continuity of power for all these ages, I think that that would give us a way of understanding how certain ideas have been maintained continuously for thousands of years, and how it seems like this plan of global empire has been slowly progressing for thousands of years. So I've been into that. I've also been reading Alexandre Dumas, The Count of Monte Cristo, which there's a lot of themes that I don't really agree with or I don't appreciate, but the book itself and the whole quest for revenge that Edmond Dante gets into in that book is just amazing. And I love the way that Dumas writes, and it's a good book. It's one book of fiction that I really recommend you check out. I think that it's an excellent piece of literature. I've also been reading Friedrich Nietzsche's Untimely Meditations, which I think is, if it was untimely when he wrote it, it's extremely timely today, because he describes in this book what he calls the cultural Philistine, which today I think would apply to the general modern leftist that you'll find on campuses or in media or in Hollywood or politics in general. And I just wanted to read you a quick quote, put my glasses on so I could read. Him describing the cultural Philistine, the leftist. While professing to hate fanaticism and intolerance of any form, what they really hated was the dominating genius and the tyranny of the real demands of culture. And that is why they employed all their powers in paralyzing, stupefying, or disrupting all those quarters where fresh and powerful movements might be expected to appear. A philosophy which chastely concealed behind arabesque flourishes the Philistine confession of its author, invented, in addition, a formula for the apotheosis, the creating of a divinity, the apotheosis of the commonplace. It spoke of the rationality of the real, and thus ingratiated itself with the cultural Philistine, who also loves arabesque flourishes, but also, above all, conceives himself alone to be the real, and treats his reality as the standard of reason in the world. He now permitted everyone, including himself, to reflect, to research, to aestheticize, above all, to compose poetry and music, to paint pictures, even to create entire philosophies. The sole proviso was that everything must remain as it was before, that nothing should at any price, undermine the rational, the real, that is to say, the Philistine. The latter, to be sure, is very partial to abandoning himself from time to time to the pleasant and daring extravagances of art and skeptical historiography, and knows how to appreciate the charm of such forms of entertainment and distraction. But he sternly segregates the, quote, serious things of life, that is to say, profession, business, wife, and child, from its pleasures, and to the latter belongs more or less everything that has anything to do with culture. Therefore, woe to an art that starts to take itself seriously and make demands that touch upon his livelihood, his business, and his habits. In short, the Philistine serious things in life. He averts his eyes from such an art as though from something indecent, and with the air of a duenna, I think that's the word for like an old woman that takes care of children, with the air of a duenna, he warns every defenseless virtue not to look. So what he's saying here is, for the cultural Philistine, for the modern day leftist now, any sort of creative extravagance, any inventive philosophy, any new wacky, crazy idea can be entertained by these people. They're willing to entertain anything, as long as it doesn't mess with or change the business life, the rational things in life, the real meat and bones of a culture, the way that lives are actually lived. So as long as you go to work, you pay your taxes, as long as you go through all the required hoops, you can have whatever crazy ideas you want. Just don't mess with the economic, the serious, the rational status quo that exists. And I think that is an interesting thought, because as soon as anybody really tries to do something, not just talk about doing things, not just have ideas, but really try to change the way that they're living and make it in opposition to the current modern industrial capitalist way of life, they are targeted in very severe ways. So everything is permitted. You have to be tolerant, but you cannot be tolerant of things that would actually disrupt in a meaningful way the system that we're living under. So I think that was interesting. You should really read the whole thing of Untimely Meditations. I think it's one of Nietzsche's best works, to be honest. So there's that. But what's the main point of this video? The main point of this video is an interesting phenomenon that I came across the other day. This is switching gears to something completely different, really. An interesting phenomenon. I don't know if you're familiar with the whole "it's happening" meme. There's a meme propagated on these anonymous image boards, and the meme is usually something like, it'll be like Ron Paul or some other guy like that, and the text will say something like, "It's happening," or "You should have listened," or whatever. And they'll post this when news of some kind of event is occurring. So like, say there's a dip in the stock market or something like that, or an earthquake happens, or some kind of event happens that is perceived as the trigger of some immense cataclysm, some kind of apocalypse, that the world is gonna end, and that this is the trigger of it. This is like what the meme is. So usually it involves some kind of actual event that has happened, and people will post that and give the interpretation that this event is the trigger of the apocalypse, of the end times, or of the doom of mankind, or something like that. So usually it does involve some kind of real event. But the other night, I was surfing the image boards, and somebody posted this thread that I'll show you right now. And so this thread is basically saying huge happening is occurring, something big is happening, and they link you to this YouTube live stream called Echoes of Meteors, or Meteor Echoes. And basically, the stream is just a bunch of noise. It's like there must be a satellite up in the upper atmospheres that is recording sound waves or something in the upper atmosphere. And for the most part, it's just static noise. But then every once in a while, you'll get some kind of big spike in the noise, like a signal coming out. And with it, the frequency of the pitch that's playing goes higher. And so you see this spike and you hear this higher pitch frequency. And there were hundreds of people in the chat watching this live stream. And every time there would be a spike, the chat would just start going nuts. Like, "Oh, it's happening. It's happening." And it's happening! Ah! I feel like half the people sort of were aware that they had to be aware that this was a joke. But the way that I saw this was that it was the whole concept of it's happening, the concept of apocalyptic thinking. It's really like an eschatology, where I think that there really is a sense, and this is what this reflects, because it's nonsense. It's broken down to the base essentials of the concept, which is a reflection of how a lot of people feel today. And those essentials are this sense that the world is chaotic, the sense that there's a lot of chaos, a lot of noise, a lot of disorder that we can't really make sense of, but that we're waiting for some kind of signal to emerge from the noise. We're waiting for some kind of event, some kind of order to suddenly emerge from the chaos, and some kind of event that will culminate out of the chaos. Because when you look at the world today, it is chaotic. Not a lot makes sense. I mean, there's a million different examples to give. Like, obviously the whole gender identity thing, absolute chaos. The idea that the migrant crisis, the idea that we should just bring in all these different groups of ethnicities and mix them all together in one area and expect that that'll turn out okay. Chaos, absolute chaos. Democratic elections, like, does anybody really feel like our politicians represent the will of the people? That democracies are producing leaders that represent the will of the people? No fucking way. So a lot of people are out there and they're wondering, like, it's chaos. Like, who's in authority around them? What sort of decisions are they making? Why are they doing the things that they're doing? Also, we're in like trillions of dollars of debt. The GDP of like America in particular doesn't come close to matching the debt. And then we have stuff like climate change going on. We have massive unemployment. There's just so much in the world today that is chaotic. There's a lack of order and structure that feels secure to people. And so I think that when we get an example of something like this, the meteor echoes, it on the most abstract and fundamental level reflects how we feel about the world today. It's like we're sitting there and we're watching this noise, this chaos, and we know that it can't last. We know that something has to emerge that ends the chaos and reestablishes order somehow, because the world cannot just be chaos forever. Order will always reestablish itself. So watching this, it was just hilarious, because it's like other people must be feeling this way. So why else would so many people get into watching this live stream where God knows what they're actually measuring up in the upper atmosphere? Who knows what these spikes on the signal means? But what we see, and all we really need to see, is this chaos where every once in a while some signal bursts out of it. And like on some level our brains interpret that as satisfying or interesting or exciting in some way, because that's what we're waiting for. We see this chaos. We're waiting for something to happen. We're waiting for an event that ends it once and for all and reestablishes some sort of order. So I thought that was sort of interesting and worth making a video about. So I don't really have too much more to say about it. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching.